But the losing continues when it comes to our tax dollars anyway. It's time once again to open the books. Did you know the American taxpayer tab for refugee care sits at $20 billion? The cost of taxpayers also rose almost $2 billion from 2022 to 2023. And with more illegals pouring in each and every day, well, get out your pocketbooks. Joining me now with more is Open the Book CEO and founder Adam Andrzejewski. Adam, always love our segments where we open the books, although it is cringeworthy and it gives me a little bit of heartburn. I still think it's important that we discuss it. You've always got new ones that Open the Books is reporting, and obviously I came across one of your latest investigations into how much we are spending on so-called refugees. The refugee numbers are growing probably by the minute. What can you tell us about what we're spending and what it's actually for?
So last year in 2023, there was a record crush at our borders of 2.5 million migrant encounters. And Tommy, it's only getting worse. Just 6 days ago, Border Patrol reported stunning numbers, the worst ever, up 50% in a month, up to 302,000 encounters just in the last month. That's up 50%. So look, if that pace continues, you're looking at 3.6 million encounters at our nation's borders. And look, Mexico is the #1 country. About 1 out of every 3 of the encounters, their nation of origin is Mexico. But then you've got a lot of countries from Central America and South America and the Caribbean. So you've got Venezuela, Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, even Cuba, with the crush of migrants on our borders.
Yeah, I mean, really, pretty much every country in the world has been represented as far as coming across our southern border. A lot of numbers also on the terror watch list, very high numbers that should be concerning to all Americans. But beyond just the national security implications, we got to get down to the brass tacks of the money. What this is costing us, we know that this is going to suck us dry. We know that there are several cities across the United States that are already underwater when it comes to having to resettle these so-called refugees. But this money that the taxpayers are spending on these illegal immigrants, refugees, migrants, whatever you want to call them, where is that money really going, or do we even really know?
So remember when in 2016, when Trump was running for president and the top line estimates on a robust and substantial border wall, those estimates topped out at $15 billion, and the left went crazy. They said, we don't have the money. That's too much money. Well, at openthebooks.com, our auditors just quantified the cost of migrant aid over the course of the last 2 years, and it's north of $20 billion out of a sub-agency of Health and Human Services. It's called the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Just in the past 2 years, $20 billion at taxpayer cost. So this all-time surge in migrant encounters at the border has led to an all-time surge in taxpayer cost. Joe Biden is the first president that will probably run up to about $50 billion worth of migrant aid in his 4 years. So that Trump border wall, that was peanuts by comparison.
And when you build a wall to protect your nation, that's something that is long-standing, something that you build as an investment. But these illegals, migrants, refugees, whatever they are, asylum seekers, dreamers, whatever, coming over, it's not just a one-time payment. We're pretty much taking care of these people in perpetuity. And we also have the unaccompanied minors that we're really taking care of in perpetuity, whether it be actually getting them where they need to go, paying for their meals, paying for their housing, paying for their education, paying for the stresses on our infrastructure, paying for immigration judges and court processes. I mean, we talk about these kids that are coming over unaccompanied, a lot of them obviously under the age of 18. I can only imagine what the bill for that's going to be over the next few years. What can you tell us?
Tommy, I'm glad you're talking about it. At openthebooks.com, between 2013 and 2022, we quantified $13 billion worth of U.S. taxpayer assistance for the unaccompanied minors, but the numbers are up sharply and substantially. And there's actually a child trafficking crisis unfolding, which this Office of Refugee Resettlement is an unwitting partner in this child trafficking scheme with the cartels. There's been 260,000 of these unaccompanied minors. These are kids under 18 years of age that are encountered on the border without a parent, without a guardian. 85,000 of them have been, quote unquote, lost within the system. after this agency sponsors them out. They don't know where they're at. They really don't know who they're with anymore. And they can't get in touch with the sponsors of 85,000 of these unaccompanied minors.
Yeah, it really is aiding and abetting the sex trade, the human trafficking trade. And beyond that, too, I want to talk about the Office of Refugee Resettlement, but even beyond them, let's talk about some of these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that are getting money from the federal government to resettle these people or to take them certain places, and how these grants are allocated. I'm sure there's a lot of fraud, waste, and discrepancies when it comes to that as well. Maybe some conflicts of interest as well. What can you tell us about these organizations that we are funding so graciously and charitably?
So they're the frontline organizations that hand out the suite of benefits, which are very lucrative. You've got a crush at the border because we're handing out taxpayer money with very lucrative perquisites and perks for folks. So, these agencies actually are in charge of emergency housing assistance, work applications for jobs. They offer mental health screening, cultural orientation. They'll help you build your credit, buy your first home. They'll give you micro grants to start your business. The list goes on and on. The public benefits application, which is the whole suite of the public aid benefits. So it's too lucrative right now. And that's why you've got caravans of hundreds of thousands of people a month crushing our border.
And the numbers are also staggering, even beyond just what's happened in the last couple of years. And we talk about just the illegal immigrants that have been living in the shadows in this country for years and years, if not decades and decades. A lot of those illegal immigrants are also receiving assistance, still receiving assistance, and they're doing that from their American-born anchor babies. So you've got anchor babies born in the U.S., and then these parents and others are able to feed off of them, and it gets benefits and entitlements and welfare programs for really in perpetuity. And I'm sure that with the probably 20 to 30 million illegals we have in this country, I can't even begin to imagine how you'd audit a cost like that.
So you're always asking the question, has the agency itself, in this case, the Sub-Agency of Health and Human Services, and it's called the Office of Refugee Resettlement, have they been captured by those non-governmental organizations, those charities that are doling out the benefits and the grants? And so here's the situation at the Office of Refugee Resettlement. The current director, Robin Dunn Marcos, actually comes out of two of the top 5 grant receiver organizations. So you've got International Rescue Committee. Their grants just last year, when she was the director, were up $100 million year over year. Now, she was an employee there for 23 years. She was in an executive capacity for the last 4 years before she joined before she joined leadership at the Office of Refugee Resettlement, who hands out the grants. Now, the agency says she follows the ethics rules. She recuses herself from any conversations with the International Rescue Committee. But Tomi, here's the deal. At openthebooks.com, we always say, says who with what proof? We filed a Federal Freedom of Information Act request for her emails. That was 9 months ago, and they refused to turn them over.
So what do you think you would find in those emails that we might be a little concerned about?
Well, any thumb on the scale in terms of her former 2 employers, World Church Services or the International Rescue Committee. And like I said, they're scooping up hundreds of millions of dollars worth of grant making from the very agency she now heads up. So we need congressional action on this. I think congressional investigators need to dig in.
Yeah, it really is concerning. The average person out there, when they hear about these philanthropic organizations, these even sometimes religious-based, as you mentioned, church-based organizations that are supposed to be helping these illegal aliens out, they're not always doing it out of the goodness of their heart. In a lot of cases, they're doing it because they're making a whole lot of money doing it. So they have a dog in this fight as well. They don't want to end the crisis at our southern border. They don't want to end the invasion, because then the money would dry up if you don't have people people that you can get grant dollars for. So it feels like there's a lot of people in cahoots here to keep this up, whether it's because they want to give these people voting rights or they just want to have the money keep flowing through. I just can't imagine if we don't get this solved, how does the United States of America not go bankrupt with this?
Well, Tommy, you're spot on. So the executive that runs the International Rescue Committee makes $1 million a year. Church World Services, they actually advocated on Twitter for the abolishment of ICE. So, and look, Robin Dunn Marcos, the director of the agency that comes out of those two organizations, she makes a lot of money as the director of this sub-agency of Health and Human Services. As a matter of fact, she out-earns every single member of Congress except the House Speaker. She makes $180,000 a year, and a rank and file U.S. senator and member representative in the U.S. House, they make $174,000 a year. So all of these people, you start out in this world to do good and you end up doing very well.
Yeah. Well, I also think that our members of Congress are grossly overpaid. In addition to that, so maybe there's some work that could be done there. Maybe they would be willing to hemorrhage part of their salaries to the illegal immigrants that they are dead set on allowing into our country. Every time I talk to you, we get a lot of great information the American people need to know. It's still unsettling, but we got to have the facts and we got to have the figures. So thank you, and thank you to Open the Books for everything that you guys do and keeping us on top of all this. It's painful to hear, but we got to hear it. It's the cold, hard truth. Thank you as always, and I encourage everybody to go to Open the Books and make sure they're up to date on all the investigations you guys do and all your fantastic work. Thank you as always.
Thank you, Tommy.